Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris, and this is Barn on 11970. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. And I got a little bit of a different type of video I want to do today, and I found this very interesting. Um, every now and then, I love when I watch the recommended videos on YouTube. It'll usually give you 90% of the things that you usually look at, and then every now and then, they'll just do some random video. And I suddenly last night got hooked for probably a good 6 hours straight. It was amazing, where it was all stuff about other countries and trying U.S. products and foods and drinks and things like that. And then all of a sudden, I started watching a bunch of different videos of people interviewing people all around the world, asking them what they think of Americans from their perspective. And if you haven't seen these, especially if you live in the United States Corporation, I would definitely recommend watching a few. And here's what I got from the majority of people. And they just asked random people on the streets. They weren't asking politicians. They weren't going into banks and asking banksters and things like that. They were just asking people that were walking down the street. What most people around the world view us Americans like, and if you're from outside the United States and have never been here, let me know if you hear the same things. But I found this quite interesting. Number one, they call us fat. They call us, number two, the most was dumb. They view us as very uneducated people. They view us as out of touch with the world policies, all gun carrying / cowboys. That's why you see like the size of Texas is so big. Everybody in the world pretty much thinks we're like just like Texas and wear cowboy hats, cowboy boots, and twirl guns in the air. They say that we have no knowledge of politics. We're very loud and obnoxious. We're extremely into winning and sports. And I agree with a lot of those things. I mean, if you think about it, let's break them down. And this is where you have to be, truthful to yourself. I mean, the number one thing, like I said, is most people around the world view Americans as fat. And if you look at our food compared to the other countries around the world, and that was why I really was curious about this. The first videos I started watching were other countries trying American food. And the two biggest things that all around the world people would say is, number one, our food is too salty. Number two, it's too sugary. And I guess you could add a third. They always point out the word artificial flavors. And a lot of countries around the world are so much more health conscious. Instead of artificial sweeteners, they'll use real pure cane sugar. Instead of artificial flavors, they'll actually use the flavors of whatever thing. Like, for example, instead of lemon-flavored drink, they'll actually use a drink that's made from lemons. So there's a reason why a lot of Americans are overweight, and that's just not a stereotype. You could see that. It's because of the food that we have here is basically garbage. It has hardly any nutritional value, and it didn't make sense until I saw one video where there was, I think, Irish people over in Ireland were eating American cereals. And this is all sugar. And we would feed these to our kids. And I remember as a kid, I used to have things like Captain Crunch and Fruit Loops and, all these sugary things. And even when I tried to eat something healthier like Wheaties, what would you do? It'd be so bland, you'd pour sugar all over it. So it was all carbohydrates and sugars. And if you don't burn that energy, it gets used as fat. And because so many people are on computers all the time and they don't go out as much, they'll play video games, especially the kids, instead of going out and actually playing. Is it any wonder why we're so overweight? The lazy part, I mean, I cannot disagree, but it's not everybody. But you see people these days, I mean, especially I've noticed in the past 5 years or so, DJing. 10 years ago when I was DJing, I'd throw a party, people would be dancing all over all night, having a great time until they basically collapsed from exhaustion. Now, especially the kids, all they want to do is sit at their computers, sit at the tables on their laptops or their cell phones. People, again, they don't go out anymore. So yeah, that will create a little bit of laziness. I mean, look how many people there are. Over 1/3 of Americans are on welfare. So they would rather get a government check than actually work. That says a lot. As far as the intelligence and being out of touch with world politics, I mean, I say this all the time. People know more about sports statistics than they know about their own government. Now, what is my point about this? Because they definitely said some good things, and this is where it was positive. Because when they asked the good points about Americans and what they view of them, they always viewed us as friendly, all being not sincere. And I could definitely understand that, because you ever see, if you live in the United States and you say hello to somebody, especially like if you go to work or something, you'll say, "Hey, how are you?" And you'll just usually say fine and continue on your way. And most people, their reactions around the world is they find that a little um, disingenuous, because around the world, if you said to somebody, "How are you?" it was because you wanted to know how they were. And here we just say it as kind of like a passerby, say, "How are you?" "Fine." "How are you?" "Great," and keep going. So they're kind of like, their feeling towards us is, well, they're friendly, but yet when they ask you, "How are you?" they're expecting to tell you, and you wanting to hear what it is, that how they're feeling, and we don't do that. But they also say we're very patriotic, which I definitely agree. We're very confident people. That I could definitely agree. We're very strong-willed, and you know, there's some positives. And a lot of people were asked, even the one after they gave all these critical things about what they view us like. They view us like Donald Trump. That's what most people say. But they said, "Would you live or want to visit the United States?" And almost every time, people said they were either here and loved it, or if they haven't, they would want to be here. Because it is freedom, it is the land of opportunity. And I think unless you start paying more attention to the outside world, we don't appreciate what we have and what we could lose. All around the world, people, in a way, it's almost jealous of what we have because we take it for granted. And I can understand how people can view us in such a negative light, that we have this government system that was created to be something unlike any other government in history. And the freedoms we're allowed, the freedoms of speech to say the things that we can say and do the things that we can do, especially when we first started this country, is like nowhere else in the world. And yet we are taking it for granted. And we're just like teenagers now that think that we're invincible and we could just party all night and there'll be no consequences, and we could call in sick for work and let things slide, and oh, we'll do it tomorrow. That we're allowing what could be the potentially greatest nation ever die because most people don't care. And I understand that the government is corrupt. I understand corporations are corrupt. I've been talking about this for many a year. But it all boils down to us. Do we make the change? Do we not lose this experiment that could be the best government ever as far as freedom for its people to be squandered? And there's an old saying that I hope we never really have to experience, is you don't know what you got until it's gone. And I was just so obsessed last night. I was up until about 6:30 in the morning. I must have watched at least 6 or 7 hours straight of what other people around the world thought about us. Our food, our culture, our government, our people. And they are it's almost like they're rooting for us. I didn't sense a lot of hatred, even when they said the things that they said negatively. I mean, you can't dispute some of the things that they say, that they're not really stereotypes. And yet, here in this country, we just have this attitude of, oh, well, it'll always be this way. America's great. And we're letting it die to the point where one day it will not be great anymore. And if we lose that, we will never get it back. Or at the very least, be a very extreme challenge to get it back. And that's why I've dedicated so many years of my life trying to get people, especially in this country, to see what an amazing life we could have We can get things that most people around the world never have. Like a lot of them, they had videos of children around the world eating our candies and never have tasted things so sweet before. And how excited they were. And people are always saying, oh, look at the large portions. There are people starving around the world. There are people that are waking up wondering if they'll get a glass of water so they can survive. And we throw food around like it's a party. We waste like it's going to last forever. And the problem is in this world that we take for granted the very thing that we hold so dear. And when it gets taken away from us, it will be our fault. It's like having the best girl or best guy in your world, and they do everything to make you happy, and you just take it for granted and expect things from them. And then one day they realize, why should I do all this wonderful stuff for a man or a woman who doesn't appreciate me? And they walk away from you, never to see you again. And that feeling that you feel of your heart being ripped out when you realize, wow, that was the best thing I ever had, and I let it go. It is our responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, there has never been in recorded history a government like ours. And we are fighting amongst ourselves. We are killing one another. We are filling ourselves with hatred, whether it's self-inflicted or other means through racism, through religion, through sexism, whatever. And we are allowing the people that are supposed to represent us filter down all this hatred and division. And we blame everybody but ourselves. And instead of us pointing out, because I've gotten to the point, yes, I've had many videos teaching all about the problems and all the situations that cause those problems. But I've come to the conclusion now, it's like they say, you take the high road and I'll take the low road. But if they both get you to the same destination, that's all that matters. So to me, it doesn't matter how the situation started or how they're going. It's what we do with them. And if we're going to spend our whole lives ignoring things, pretending, oh, everything will be fine like it was yesterday, like it is today, you put yourself in a situation where if tomorrow isn't the same as today or isn't the same as yesterday, you cannot do anything at that point. And that's why I always bring up times like, for example, the example of Pompeii, where people lived near an active volcano. And the reason they stayed there is because it did not erupt. And it didn't erupt for a very long time. And you get this confidence that it won't happen tomorrow. Until one day, everyone died where they stood. So I understand that people that will comment on my videos and say things like, oh, we haven't had that collapse. Gold and silver isn't hitting the moon. Our dollar is still wonderful. And you're right about all of those things. But it only takes one problem, one situation, to all of a sudden turn it around to the point where it just hits you like a ton of bricks. It's like going to the beach. Remember the people in Japan? Remember that tsunami that caused the problem with Fukushima, where people are still getting poisoned to this day from the toxicity of that tragedy? The day before that tsunami, I guarantee you there were plenty of people on the beach having a great time. Just like they did the day before, just like they did the year before, just like they did the decade before. But what do you think happened to the people that were on the beach that day that that water started receding and then plowing in? There's nothing you can do at that point. And that is why I've always told people, better to be 5 years too early than 5 seconds too late. And the rest of this world views us as these friendly, optimistic, confident people, patriotic, really passionate about their country, and yet we're fat, lazy, dumb, out of touch with the world, no knowledge of our own politics, let alone anywhere else in the world, who take advantage like it's a party that will never end. And yes, our government is feeding us propaganda. Yes, our government is feeding us lies. Yes, our government is trying to take away our wealth. Yes, the government wants you to be under their control. But I don't remember them putting guns to your head and making you do any of the things that they provide us. They say, here's football. They also say, here's a library that has plenty of books to teach you about the things that we are stealing from you. Take your pick. And what do people choose time and time again? The football. And they'll say on one end, here's a sugar-coated candy. Or here's a vegetable. No one put a gun to your head. So I'm going to leave the video here because my card is being frozen. We as Americans have the choice to continue to make this a not only good country, a good government, but make it better, restart where we started, and keep this from ending, or it's going to die one day. That may be tomorrow, that may be 20 years from now, but it cannot last and will not last forever. And one day we will regret that we didn't make the choices that could have stopped it. And that is up to us. So thank you for everybody around the world for enlightening me about how other people view us. It was very inspirational. It was very eye-awakening. And I hope your eyes are awakened to understand that united we stand and divided we fall. And 777 says, what do we propose, Chris? Stop settling. Stop accepting. Stop pretending it doesn't exist. Stop giving up hope. Start educating yourself. Start caring. Start having your voice being heard. Better to be doing something and fail than to do nothing and have it fail. So thanks for watching. Have a great day. If you live around the world, I'd love to hear what you think about your views towards Americans. Be honest. Be respectful. And let's get a dialogue going. Let's work together, ladies and gentlemen. This world is a set of dominoes ready to fall. Let's not let it happen. Have a great day.